So when is it time to move on from a relationship? When is it time to move on? When is it time to essentially say this relationship is done, I'm going to move on? When is it time? A lot of people they get into a relationship and they stay in that relationship longer than they should because even though the relationship has gone sour and they should have gotten out of the relationship a long time before, just because they hold on to this hope that things are going to get better, or their emotions get in the way. When is it time to move on from your relationship that's not working? I can tell you right now that it's not when you essentially stayed in a relationship so long that you've lost any sign of your own identity or any sign of your own dignity, that you stay in a relationship so long that it's actually affected you in an emotional way, in a negative way emotionally. Because that's what will happen when you stay in a relationship that you should have gotten out of a while back. It brings you down. It essentially deteriorates you. It keeps pounding you further down emotionally, so that by the time you come to your senses and really leave that relationship, you're so emotionally scarred, you never know if you can ever have a normal relationship again or if you can trust someone else again. So obviously, the last thing you want to do is wait until that time. You never want to wait too long before moving on from a relationship that you should leave, that is not healthy for you. So when is the right time to move on from a relationship? I would say if you're essentially in a relationship and you have talked to your partner about the problems that you're having, you've given it some time for those problems to be resolved, and those problems have not been resolved, it's time to move on. It really is. Some couples, they just keep holding on, hoping that things get better. But the fact of the matter is, if you've talked about it and you've tried to make things, and you've essentially taken steps to make things work in that relationship, and yet it has not worked, yet your partner has essentially gone back to how they were. Maybe they put in a little bit of effort in the beginning as you were trying to rehabilitate the relationship, but now they've gone back to the way they used to be. Then essentially you got to get out. It's the right time to get out. You can't hold on to, okay, maybe she's going to change. Maybe he's going to change. Maybe we can try this again. So the best time to move on is if you've tried to save the relationship, taken steps to do that, and it has failed, it is time to move on, because your partner is not going to change. Okay? So staying on in that relationship is only going to make it worse for you. And remember, like I said earlier, what a lot of couples fail at, what happens to a lot of couples is that when they stay on in a relationship, someone ends up, when they stay on too long in a relationship, somebody ends up just debilitated emotionally. So that by the time they get out of that relationship, they're so scarred, they've lost a huge sense of who they are. Their self-esteem is in the toilet. They probably think that, they will never really have a good relationship or a healthy relationship. So it affects you psychologically. So you don't want to get to that point. So as I said, you've put in the effort, you've addressed the problem, you've given it some time, it hasn't worked, your partner has retracted, gone back to how they were before. Don't sit back holding out hope thinking things are going to change. That's the time you need to move on.